Good morning, Janice.
Good morning, Anthony.
Today we're gonna do another sort of real world story, real world example, and this is how a trust keeps it in the family. A lot of folks don't really understand exactly how trusts work, not only now but over generations, over time, and we're kind of wrapping one up right now where we can look back and use it as an example for our listeners as to how trusts work. And how it's, in this case, has accomplished the stated goal of just keeping the wealth within the family. Now, remember, these are based on real-world situations that we're actually dealing with, but we've changed several details to protect the privacy of our clients. All right?
So today we will discuss the story of Andy, the story of John, and the story of Lily.
Cool. So just to be clear, Andy and John are brothers, or were brothers, and Lily is John's daughter. Okay, so this is all the same family. So Andy was the one who had the money, and he was worried. He was not married. He didn't have kids, and his main heir was his brother John. So that's presumably who the money would have gone to upon his passing. But he was worried. He was worried that John would gamble it away, or get a hot new girlfriend, or otherwise just lose it. These are both older gentlemen, so they were having a good time. Then he thought about just sort of skipping his brother John and giving it directly to John's daughter Lily. But there were some family issues, nothing major, but there were some family issues where Andy kind of questioned Lily's loyalty, and wasn't sure how he felt about giving directly to Lily either. So, after consulting with me and a few other attorneys, Andy decided he wanted to do a trust. So, in case anyone doesn't know, a trust is a wrapper you put around assets or money with some rules on it, and those rules dictate who gets the money or who gets access to what portion of the money and when. So here's what Andy decided to do. Andy created a trust funded with his wealth when he passed away that would pay income to John for as long as John lived, and then upon John's passing, the trust would continue for Lily's kids, skipping Lily, okay?
Okay.
So let me explain how those things work real quick. The trust paid income to John throughout his life. So let's say the trust was $1 million, and it was earning 2% dividends every year. That's what is that, $20,000? Yeah. So that's what John got. John got $20,000 a year, and it was I think it was paid every quarter. So every quarter he got a check for $5,000, right?
Okay.
So John has money now. He gets an income. He just doesn't have $1 million to go big baller in Vegas or Atlantic City.
Right. Be a little more physically responsible with the money that comes in.
It's more like a drip than a windfall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then wow.
So even if his new hot young girlfriend is trying to milk him for the whole inheritance, she can only get $5,000 per quarter. So there's that layer of protection to keep the bulk of the wealth within the family. And then, as we mentioned, Andy kind of had some issues with Lily and questioned her loyalty to the family. There's a whole story behind that, but not appropriate for here for privacy reasons. But he did want to keep in the family. So Lily has 3 kids. So upon John's passing, Andy wanted the money to skip Lily, and then whatever was left be divided 3 ways to Lily's kids, or I guess that would be Andy's grandnieces and nephews. Does that all make sense so far?
I'm with you.
Okay. With you. So that's the setup. All right. And then several years ago, Andy passed. And now I'm going to share you, that was the story of Andy and how he decided to set up the trust. Now we're going to move on to the story of John and what happened when Andy passed. So when Andy passed away, John was not happy. He was pretty upset. Right. He was like, why is my brother not just giving me the $1 million? Like, why does it have to be all strings attached? What the heck is this? He was really mad. But after a little bit of time, not too long, a couple months, he settled down, and he just kind of accepted this is he had an attorney. He was not so happy about it, but bear with me. There's a happy ending to the situation. But once he realized, this is how it is. This was Andy's wishes. He cooled off. By the way, he was generally a hothead, so just keep that in mind. But once he cooled off and he realized that this is how it's going to be, he began accepting those quarterly checks and he began loving it.
Ah, yep.
He loved getting those checks. It was, and he even over the years he said, you know what, this is the best way, this is the best thing to happen to me. I don't have to worry about investing or getting swindled with the main bulk of the money. I just know that I'm getting my money direct deposited into my checking account, and it's like an extra pension or an extra Social Security or an extra annuity, however you want to think about it. So that's the story of John. You know, he was originally not so happy, but once he started getting those checks every quarter, he loved it for many, many, many years. Does that make sense, Jan? Do you have any questions about how John?
It does. I actually think that'd be pretty great. I mean, you go on about life, and then every now and then you just receive a really nice check, right?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty great.
Yeah. Again, in the beginning, he wished he had received $1 million,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
But then, he was an older gentleman. A lot of people try to run scams on older citizens,
Yes.
and he was just glad it was just being taken care of, and like no matter what, he was getting his income checks.
He probably realized the pressure was now off of him, because then what do you do with the $1 million? Do you invest it? Do you do this? And you have to hire people to help you. And again, are you going to get taken advantage of? So probably what he didn't realize at first is there was going to be less stress just receiving the checks.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's John's story. And then, sadly, John passed away recently. And, we received contact from John's daughter, Lily. So this is Lily's story. And her story is just beginning, and it's actually not even her story. So Lily contacted us, and she knew going in that her Uncle Andy had decided to skip her. And whatever feelings she had about that, she had resolved them years ago when Andy had passed away. And now her role is making sure that the money, the $1 million that's left over, because remember, we were only paying the income to John.
Right.
The $1 million core is still there. Now that $1 million is available to be divided 3 ways amongst her kids, who are actually still young. I don't remember the ages, maybe 5, 7, 9. Let's just make that up.
Yeah.
So her kids have many, many years before they are adults and allowed to even access the money. So Lily has nothing to do. She's going to sign some paperwork, review some accounting documents. But once she does, all that's necessary to close out John's sort of time during the trust. Once we close all that out, then Lily's just going to sit back and they just kind of know, she doesn't have to do anything. She just know that there's basically $1 million compounding and growing for her 3 kids, so that they're going to be pretty well taken care of by the time they're adults.
Then that's a great feeling probably for a parent to have.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to have we haven't had it yet, but we're going to have a sort of a planning call on what that means in terms of, how much do they need to put away for colleges or
Right.
maybe their kids' weddings or first houses. But they know that there's at least this amount that's going to be there to help with many of those issues. So yeah, Lily got skipped, but again, she's over that. And, she seems very grateful that there's this large family wealth waiting for her 3 children.
So can you just talk a little bit about, so you talked about John, how it was, every now and then he received the interest off of it. Now, will they have to wait till a certain age and receive all of it all at once, or will it be kind of the same thing?
Yeah, great question.
How will that work?
So theoretically, under certain circumstances, we can pay out the income to the kids for school expenses or this or that. But because, in the absence of this trust, they were doing just fine anyway. We're probably going to advise them to try their best to avoid doing that, only because it creates accounting costs.
Okay.
Right. So unless they really need something, which is totally fine, then we can make a distribution. If there are no distributions, there's no tax return, or at least there's no additional tax return. So you'll save annual accounting and legal fees if you just let it grow and compound on its own. Once you start transacting in and out of it, there's some cost involved to that end. That might be worth it given the situation. But if they were fine without this money before, then they should just really let it compound. Because, we talked about this in the past. $1,000 you spend on accounting
Yes.
fees now could be, by the time the youngest kid is, 25, that could be several $1,000s that you've lost compounding on, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. Hopefully this real world story helps folks understand, why people do trust and how they keep the money within the family. And, Janice, any other questions before we go?
I don't, but I would definitely suggest your new book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan, available on Amazon, can definitely helps to dig into this a little bit more.
Yeah,
Of
for
course,
anyone who doesn't know, solo ager is a new term for our senior citizens who are unmarried and with no children, as was Andy, and how their estate planning situations can be very unique compared to, most folks assume a spouse or a child or grandchildren, and there's a growing number of our citizens who don't fit that profile and have very unique estate planning needs.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Janice, as always, and thank you everyone for listening. We'll talk again soon.
Talk soon.